So I got to Holland in January of 1990. He had a phone on the wall, just like we did in America. However, every time you made a call, there's a clicker on the box, and every time it would click, that was 5 cents. People just didn't utilize phones that often. Now people are literally on their bikes texting it's shocking. Another thing that was really cool that I had never seen, that I didn't see when I was there, it seems to be a new trend in Holland so you've got your bike, and then there's a big, huge carriage where moms are driving their kids to school on their bikes, and so the kids pile into this huge, long bike, and mom's just cruising around. I saw moms doing that with their kids, and they're texting. Back when I was there, we would smell marijuana every once in a while, but I cannot tell you, when I was there, there was probably not a moment when I was outside in Holland that I didn't smell marijuana everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, I stopped to take some pictures of these bridges in Amsterdam, and I'm sitting there waiting for the sun to get right, and there's a girl studying school, and she's just right next to me, and I'm a big old fatty just smoking her marijuana. And it's just, before it was legal, but I think you couldn't have it out in the open, and now, I mean, my goodness, it's unbelievable. I think the coolest thing to me, it's actually a catch-22 actually for us as Americans living there. They are so embracing to everybody else. I mean, they start learning English from the time they're in kindergarten. They watch TV shows in English, all the sitcoms and everything, but Dutch subtitles underneath. So everybody speaks English. They're so welcoming. Unlike, I've been to France, and not to say anything bad about France, but they're not as open and welcoming as it seems like the Dutch people are. And when I say catch-22, what I meant so when I first started living there, and I'm desperately trying to learn the language. Obviously, we have American accents. So when we try to speak Dutch to everybody, they're so welcoming, and so that they want to practice their English on us. So here I am trying to speak in their language, and they're answering back in English. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to embrace your culture. I'm trying to become one of you guys in a sense, because my ancestry is Dutch. My last name's Kooijman. It's a Dutch name. My great-grandfather's from Holland. There were times, especially when I'd been out about 4 or 5 months, when I really was starting to catch on, but I would speak Dutch to people, and they would speak English back to me, and I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to answer in Dutch, whether they speak English to me or not. And so here we are. I'm in Holland, and I'm speaking Dutch to them, and they're speaking English to me. We're both speaking each other's languages, trying to talk back and forth with each other. But that was probably what I found tough and great at the same time, because they're so welcoming. Holland's one of the most densely populated countries in the world, and so you hear about that and because everybody they live in apartments just everywhere. So I kind of had my thought was, man, there's just not going to be any farm. There's just going to be complete buildings everywhere, people, congestion. And I got to Holland. I went from Hilversum all the way up to a place called Leeuwarden, which is all the way up north. That train ride was amazing, because you're going through field after field, and here in America, we've got fence. Everybody's property is fenced. Everywhere you go, any field, it's my property. Well, in Holland, because there's all the canals, there's no fences. It's just field and field of cows everywhere, and the cows, they stay on their plot because there's water all around them. And so it was just amazing how the countryside and how cool it was, and seeing the old houses, and especially in the country when you would meet the kind of older Dutch people, and they were traditionally wearing their Dutch shoes on the farm, the klompen, or the wooden shoes, I guess. I just wasn't expecting it to be so, I guess, not a city. There are obviously the cities, Amsterdam, those kind of things, but when you're out in the country, there's a lot of country. If you have any time of the year to go to Holland, go the middle of April. When you go in the middle of April, if you go to the northern part of Holland, the tulip fields are spectacular. It's hard to comprehend. There's field after field of just different colors of tulips that are growing. And there's a place called Kokenhof that is a flower museum. And it's a huge park, kind of like Disneyland, but it's all just flowers, and they describe every kind of flower, you get to understand the whole entire market of why the flowers are, and it's so beautiful. It kind of reminds me of The Wizard of Oz, when it was black and white, and then they land, and all of a sudden it's in color. You walk into that place, and it's just your brain is just taken away. So I was there 2 springs and I got to go both times. And so that is an absolute must. I would say Amsterdam is a must to check out everything. Now, my mom's funny because my mom used to talk about Las Vegas as, oh, it's the Sin City, it's terrible and all this. And my mom lived in Holland, and I said to her one time, that's funny that's your perception of Las Vegas, because there's a lot of other things there. I said, just like, Mom, you love Holland, right? You love Amsterdam, right? Well, there's a lot of people that think Amsterdam is the den of iniquity. It's Sin City, it's all this stuff, but yet you look at it in a different view. So, Amsterdam has so much history, and you walk through it, and the square, and going to Amsterdam, they also have boat tours that you can go through the canals all around Amsterdam. They explain everything to you. It's really an amazing thing. There's everybody knows the Anne Frank house in Haarlem, which was my last city, which is my favorite place that I was at. There's the Corrie ten Boom house, which is a similar situation where they were hiding Jews from the occupation and ended up getting caught, but there's a whole museum there, and I would say go to Haarlem and experience that Corrie ten Boom house as well, because it's so much less crowded than the Anne Frank house. You're standing in line for hours and hours. Some of my favorite foods, it's a lot like pudding, but it's called vla. It's VLA, but it's pronounced vla. So it comes in cartons, and they've got vanilla. They have some that actually the carton is split in half, and I don't know how they keep it separated, and you put whipped cream on the top of it, and I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. So I probably gained 20 pounds just on vla alone because I loved it so much. We would have contests all the time, who could vla chugging contests and all kinds of things. Here in the United States, they have so many preservatives in bread. Our bread will last a week or so, but there, because there's not really preservatives, the bread tastes so much better. So bread, and then their cheese is world renowned as well too. So and there's every market you go to, you've got the guy selling his wheels of cheese everywhere. And I would take and you slice thin slices of cheese, a little bread and butter on a sandwich, and eat that. So really enjoyed a lot of the cheese. Dairy in general there is amazing too. Maybe not a lot of people know this, but Indonesia used to be a Dutch colony back in hundreds of years ago. So there's actually a lot of Indonesian people that live in Holland. And so the Indonesian food, they have what's called sauté sauce, or a pinda sauce, or peanut butter sauce. A lot of people in Holland actually just get mayonnaise for their French fries, but every stand also has peanut butter sauté sauce. And it is so good, I can't even tell you. They eat a lot of meat and potatoes. For Christmas, they have a lot of pastries like oliebollen, which are, you put powdered sugar on it, and it's kind of like a donut, sort of. They have things called stroopwafels. You put the caramel inside, you clamp it down sort of like a pancake, they heat it up, and it is, it's fantastic. It's so good. So I would say the craziest is raw herring. It is a Dutch staple, and so they cut it up, they put it with onions, and I wouldn't say it has the most pleasant smell in the world. When I was first there, it was probably Goedemorgen, ik ben blij hier om te zijn, dank you om jou te ontmoeten. Once you're there and you try to get a little bit of the accent. Goedemorgen meneer, ik ben blij om je te ontmoeten. Ik ben zo blij dat ik hier in Nederland kan zijn om al die mensen te ontmoeten. En ik weet dat mijn Nederlands niet zo goed meer is, omdat 30 jaar geleden was dat ik op zending was. Maar ik vind het nog steeds leuk om Nederlands te praten. So when I got to Holland, they had opened up a brand new city, and it's called Drachten. There's no train station there. There were 4 of us, and it's right when the Gulf War started, when I was there. And so we were told not to come in and leave at certain times because of what was going on. Well, there was only one member in the whole city that was a member of the church that would have us to lunch once a week. And I'd only been there, a month and a half, and my companion tells me, hey, grab your stuff, we're going knocking on doors. We had a lunch appointment at 12:30. It was 11:45, and I looked at him like, are you crazy? Because it was 15 minutes to ride our bikes to where we needed to go, and then we'd had 15 minutes to knock on doors, and then 15 minutes to go to his house. And I'm like, what's the point? 15 minutes? Anyway, and he said, look, no, we're going. We got to go. I just know we need to go. We ride our bikes to the spot. We start in this neighborhood. We knock on the first door, and nobody answers, so we we start walking to, and the houses are all combined next to each other. So we walk out of there. We're about to knock on the next door neighbor's door. When the first door opens, and it's an older couple, they look out, and we're like, "Oh, hey, we're missionaries." My companion did most of the talking then because I didn't speak Dutch for that well. But they said, "Oh, yeah, we know who you guys are. Hey, we were literally walking out the door when we heard the knock. That's what took us so long to get to the door. We're going on vacation for 2 weeks, but yeah, we met missionaries, 30 years ago when we used to live in Leeuwarden, and yeah, we'd love to talk to you guys. Come back." So we scheduled an appointment. We came back 2 weeks later and met with them, and we spent a couple hours talking to them, and they were like, telling us their experiences, and then that they had met missionaries, and then they had moved to Drachten and had never had contact again. Well, the crazy thing is I noticed he kept looking at me, and everybody looks at you, but I could tell there was something in his going through his head where he just kept, like, he either recognized me or he knew something. And finally he said, "Hey, what is your last name again?" And I said, "It's Koyman. It's a Dutch name." And I saw a light bulb go on in his eyes. He walks upstairs, and he comes back down, and he hands me a card so a lot of back then Dutch missionaries used to have little cards that we would hand out with our phone number, our name, and a picture of us, right? He hands me this card, and it's my dad's. And he said, "This is the guy I met 30 years ago for the first time that taught me that all this that you're telling me," because when we were telling him things, they were just like, "Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, we don't know that." And he's like, "You look," and my dad of all my 7 brothers and sisters, I look just like, especially when I was younger. And he said, "Yeah, your dad was amazing." My dad was only in that city for 2 weeks and had met them and then was with them for 2 weeks, and then he got transferred out. They moved to Drachten. So he just was like, "How unbelievable is this? I mean, you're sitting in my living room." I'm like, "Yeah, my dad, he was here." And so we started talking, and the crazy thing about this is we taught them, and actually they were, in my whole 2 years, probably the only people that I had the experience of seeing go through a whole change process and becoming baptized. I actually got to baptize her, and I still remember I was so scared to do it because her name was Eliana Leontina Maillard Dijkstra. So, and I had to practice that in my head over and over again. The odds of me showing up 30 years later to a town that had never had missionaries, were the first missionaries to go there, and we had a 15-minute window, and my companion's like, "We're going." Had we not gone there after lunch, they would have been on vacation. We would have passed the house over. I would have never had that experience to meet this family, become part of. I in a sense, kind of became one of their grandsons, because they were just such a great family to me the whole rest of my mission, and supported me, and it was just. Ja, het was fantastic. Zo, ik ben blij dat ik in Nederland op zending was geweest, heel lang geleden. Maar omdat mijn familie Koyman is, ik was echt trots om in Nederland te wonen en Nederlands te leren. Wat ik wil zeggen is dat of je wat zendelingen op straat zien, wij zijn niet gekke mensen, we zijn niet mensen die wil altijd, je moet in de kerk komen. We zijn gewoon jongens die, de meeste mensen zijn, de jongens zijn 19, 20, 21 en zo. Het is best wel leuk om Amerikanen om te kunnen leren. Het is een beetje moeilijk, want ik heb niet zo lang Nederlands gesproken. Maar Nederland is zo voor mij een van de beste plaatsen in de wereld. Omdat mijn vader, mijn grootvader, mijn overgrootvader is van Terschelling. En zo, eigenlijk toen de Olympics hier in Amerika waren, hier in Salt Lake City, ik had de gelegenheid om naar de Heineken House te gaan, waar al die athletes waren, en om hen te kunnen zien en alles te ervaren. So, wat ik wil zeggen is dat, of je wat zendelingen op straat zien, ga maar met hem praten. Gewoon om, wij als Amerikanen willen van alles dat Nederland heeft te leren. En Ja, kom maar, zeg maar dag en ja, zo is het. En ik wilde dat ik in Nederland zou kunnen wonen nog meer, maar ik ben blij. Ik ben al getrouwd, ik heb tweelingen 2 keer. Zo. Ik heb meisjes die 11 zijn en een jongen en een meisje dat 5 zijn. Zo. En elk jaar op 5 december hebben we Sinterklaas en ik heb Zwarte Piet deze jaar gedaan. En dat is best wel leuk zo. Bedankt en tot ziens.